Well, hello again and welcome back. It's Kathy and Rosie Vesperina. This is a continuation on from the previous video where we rode to the bike show up at Hamlyn Terrace. And while we were there, someone had suggested we go for a ride up to Kulnura. It's somewhere I probably wouldn't ride by myself yet because I don't feel skilled enough. But we ended up with a small group of myself and Fee, Marie, her husband, Joe and her son who recently got his L's. So we all went up I say up the mountain, but it's not really a mountain, but there's lots of curvy bits. That is a good test of our skills. I also mentioned in the previous video that I shot this one in the linear point of view rather than the wide, and I don't like it as much, and so for the future ones I will move it back to the wider point of view. This area is just beautiful. A couple of bridges that we just went past. I don't even know if I have driven up here. I can't really remember. But it's lovely. I had to cut up the video because I had so much footage to try and get it under 20 minutes. And I'm really disappointed I had to do that because there was so much to see, so much lovely landscape, but I'm sure it's not as interesting to those people that are watching it, my family and friends. Plenty of little farms and what have you around the area, and plenty of bushland. There's also a lot of bikes on the road in both directions, but obviously coming back the other way is what we noticed the most. The speed limit up to Kulnura varied between 50, there was some 60s, there was some 70s, there was some 80s, and there were some 80s that have corners that you had to do at 40. So it was quite a variety of speed limits for us. The other person that was with us was Summer, and she was ahead of me on her little Honda that I mentioned in the previous video, and gosh, it just goes. It's only 110cc. Rosie is 150cc, but she was ahead of me and doing incredibly well. You'll notice that I provide a lot of space between myself and the person in front of me. I don't like riding really close. I don't like driving really close to other people either, but I definitely don't like riding really close to other people, just in case there is, God forbid, a accident. I want to have enough space to be able to stop and get out of the way as quickly as possible. And if I'm too close, I don't feel that I can do that. You will notice there is some like a pink and a blue little ribbon things on my bike, and that's because when we're at the bike show I entered Rosie into two categories. One was the Lambs, which is the learner approved motorcycles category, and the female category. There were much more beautiful bikes than Rosie. Sorry, Rosie, to offend you. Which I had pointed out in the other video. That Princess one was my absolute favourite. But it was only $10 to enter, and I think it went to a good cause, so I didn't mind entering just for the fun of it. But I forgot to take the ribbons off the mirror, and so the noise of that was just a little bit annoying. When I finally got to Kulnura, I will take them off. So this was really good experience for me doing the curves. They're not really sharp. Some of them were sharp, but they're moderately sharp, and so much fun finding the right line, entering into them at the right speed so that you don't feel worried. In the course last week that somebody did ask, what is the right speed to be entering into a corner? And the response was perfect from my perspective. The instructor said, if you feel nervous or you feel it in your gut that you're unsure, then that's too fast. You can never predict what the right speed is for a corner because every corner is different, obviously. But if you feel wonky in your tummy, you know that you are potentially heading into that corner too fast, and I can definitely resonate with that. So back off a bit. Great advice, I thought. When you're heading up to Kulnura, it's kind of an incline up, slow and steady. I don't know what the elevation profile is. Some parts were flat, but you could certainly feel that you were climbing up a little bit. I said a mountain before, but it's just more of a large hill probably. Plenty of cars going past in the other direction. They don't really bother me anymore, surprisingly. I obviously keep a really good eye on where they are on the road and how they're driving, but I feel pretty okay having them zoom past me, and they're obviously zooming past at around 80 kilometres an hour, so that's reasonably fast. I think back to when I first got my L's and I was almost too frightened to ride to the end of the street, and so the idea of riding somewhere like this up to Kulnura, I did not think that would ever be possible. I thought it would be possible, but it would take me a long time. But I think riding with this women's group has made a huge difference to my confidence, because I know there's people in front of me in the group and there are people behind me, and we're all kind of together, rather than riding on my own, which would have been a bit more nerve-wracking. I have a couple more courses coming up in August with Stay Upright, one in Clyde where I did the previous ones, and the other out at Botany, which is a bit of a hike for me, but the instructor Paul is running both of those courses, and I just feel really comfortable riding with him. He makes me feel at ease, and I'm able to say to him, stop giving me instruction and now just let me practice, and he doesn't get offended. Sometimes too much instruction is overwhelming, for me anyway, and so if I've got the concept in my head, I prefer sometimes to just be left alone to practice that concept, rather than somebody continually talking to me and telling me what I need to do. And Paul does that, and he's happy for me to say, okay, I need you to be quiet now, so I can practice. So it's great. How beautiful and green is this whole area? It's fabulous. I absolutely love it. I've lived on the coast around 30-ish years, but I am incredibly spatially challenged, which is why I like to have the Garmin GPS on Rosie, so that if I get separated from the group for any reason, I can use that to find my way home or find my way back to somewhere that I know. I'd like to be more spatially aware and have a better idea of where I am on the coast, but I just do not, unless I've been there a few times. And I think I've said before, things actually look very different when you're riding on a bike or a scooter as opposed to when you're in the car, I've found. So even places that I might know seem different to me on Rosie. Look at this road and this. Oh, did you see that person just goes zooming past? Two of them. I nearly pooped my pants. I heard the roar behind me, looked in the mirror, saw them coming, and then they just zoomed past so fast and around this corner, which was a little bit scary because I didn't think they'd be able to see around the corner. Granted, I was doing very slow, so they absolutely have every right to overtake. And at that section they overtook me. It was legal to do so. I'm not quite sure about when they got to the corner because I felt like it was probably double lines, but the others obviously felt a little bit nervous about it as well when I spoke to them later. There were a lot of really big bikes out on the road, and I think, it's a weekend, it was a Sunday, the weather was fabulous, so that's the time when people get out on the road, in their cars and on their bikes, but particularly on their bikes. There's quite a bit of video at the beginning of this that I didn't include because we went to a few different spots before we found our route out onto here, and I think that was just because we weren't quite sure how to get out here. Potentially, I'm not 100% sure. So I didn't include any of that video, just included the video once we were on the road out here. And we went out via the big intersection at Wyong where you turn right to go up to Wyong and Hamlyn Terrace and those areas, or you turn left to go to Wantanobby, and we went left to go towards the Wantanobby over the bridge that went over the M1 or F3 in the old days we used to call it, and up into this bush area. I absolutely love it. One of the locations that I'm also keen to ride to is a place called, the acronym is PITS, but it's Pie in the Sky. And apparently it's a really popular place for bikers, particularly on the weekends. So most people have said to me as a learner, don't go there on the weekend. Try and do that midweek when there's less bikes, less cars, because there's lots of twisty road and people on bikes and cars just love riding along it at a speed that's probably outside the legal limit. So better to save it for a weekday where it's a little bit quieter and I would feel a little bit safer, and I'm more confident being maybe a little bit slower. I have no idea what the speed limit is. Apparently the government actually does keep changing the speed limit because it has so many accidents along there. So somebody had suggested drop right down to 60, but I don't know whether that's the case. But it's on the list. Also on the list is a short ride up to the Strickland State Forest, which isn't too far from me. I just can't remember what the road is like when you drive it. I've been up there a few times, so I'll probably drive up there to just check it out and see whether it's safe for me to ride. And the other ride that we're planning to do at some point in the future is to try and make it all the way up to Newcastle, just following the coast road. The M1 or F3 obviously goes all the way up there from the Central Coast, from Gosford, but that's 110 kilometres an hour. I don't think Rosie could do that. I'm limited to 90 kilometres an hour as a learner anyway, but the speeds that people ride on the M1 and the number of accidents that happen on the M1 make me pretty sure that I don't really ever want to ride on there. So we will map out a route that we leave early in the morning and have lots of breaks and head up following the coast up through Baddo Bay, up through the entrance that way. There seems to be roads, and I think the maximum speed on those roads may be up at 100. So if we're doing 90, which we're legally able to do as learners, then we should be fine. Obviously, when and if we do that ride, I will make a couple of videos out of it. There's one more video that will come out of this recordings that will be from Kulnura back to home, and that'll come out in a couple of weeks. I'm not quite sure what that space is on the left that's fenced off. I thought it was a golf course, but I think it's something else, or maybe for racehorses. There's a lot of really big properties out here, and I think a lot of people who breed horses for horse racing, but certainly a lovely area. One of the things that I need to do for Rosie is when she reaches 1,000 kilometres, and I bought her new, so those 1,000 kilometres are more or less my 1,000 kilometres. She needs to have her first proper service. She had a mini service when I kind of took her out of storage. I purchased her in December of 2023, got my L's in January of 2024, did a little bit of riding, and then in late February, when I was skiing in Canada, I had a significant fall and broke my leg, and so that took a while to recover, and by the time I was ready to start riding again, it was time for my learners to expire, and so in January 2025 I resat my learners, and so when I passed those learners, I took Rosie to the bike shop and got the bike people to do a little bit of a zhuzh to make sure she was okay to ride. She had a dead battery, so we had to charge the battery up, but she just needed a little zhuzh then. But now we're up to nearly 1,000 kilometres, so she'll need to go in to have a proper service, which is exciting. I think it's great that I've reached nearly 1,000 kilometres on her. Not long now until we reach the place where we are stopping for a coffee. I think there was a place along here that is the usual place where people stop to have a coffee, but it's under renovation, so we carried on a little bit further to I think it's a petrol station / grocery store / takeaway food store, because it seems to have had everything in it. But we will reach that spot in a minute and have a little break. We'd warmed up a little bit by this stage, but I still had cold hands, so I ended up having to put the glove liners on to just have a little bit more warmth in one of the hands. We've reached the spot, so in we go for a coffee and some snacks. And a sit in the sun to get warm. Parked nice and close to this man next to me on his bike. I think he was a bit worried. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.